Welcome back to the November 1st, 2023 edition of the Zooch and Wilde podcast. Zooch, how was New York?
It was a good time. It was very, very hectic, I would say. Red eye on Wednesday night going into Thursday from about 8 in the morning Wednesday until 10:30, 11, maybe even a little bit later Thursday. I had an hour of sleep, if that. But it's always like, going on vacation is like you're really like once you land, you're like really excited and stuff. And I was seeing some old friends and met a few new people and got to see like the East Coast version of fandom, which was a good time. So yeah, but I am happy to be back in my own
Yeah,
home in
I
my
was just
own
saying we
bed.
we just missed you because I was in Boise this weekend. I'm gonna have to come up for a basketball game. I think is what gonna end up happening. Maybe I can find a way to go to the New Mexico. For some reason, who's the clown? The New Mexico clown?
The
What's his
Gigolo.
name? Yeah. What's his name? Is it like Sacco or Jocko? The
Yeah, it's like
clown or
Chacos. He's like Leon Rice's best friend. It's
yeah, he's Leon Rice's best friend.
hilarious.
He like gifts him shoes. But no,
Yeah.
it was awesome to be in Boise. We got the win, which was good. But yeah, overall, pretty solid weekend. Like yours. Just caught up with some old friends. And yeah, it was a good weekend. What I didn't do, Zooch, was spy on anyone. This story, I I thought it was gonna be a 1 week thing. Oh, like Jim Harbaugh is gonna come out. What made it serious for me was the Central Michigan sideline footage is quite damning, if I do say so. It is, if for those of you who haven't seen the video, it quite literally is Connor Stallions wearing sunglasses, and it's the sunglasses. There's a little blue dot, which Ray-Bans makes a pair of smart glasses that film, and he is on the CMU sideline. I don't know. Is there any way they don't get brutal punishments now? I don't think there is.
I don't think there is either, but I still don't really I still don't can't figure quite out like what like that part to me is worse. Like sending him to other like now it's including Central Michigan. I think it like at this point there's
I
no telling who all is
it's
included because
it
how
is weird.
does he get
Jim
on their
McElwain
sideline?
not know, and how does Shark Boy Jim McElwain not know? I think that guy's too busy taking pictures of sharks with his birthday suit.
To
But yeah,
pay attention.
how does he not know who's on his sidelines, or how does like, an assistant coach or a strength coach not go like, hey man, like what are you doing? Like
Well, even it's weird. The weirdest part to me is like when I used to film for Boise State. If you've ever looked at the sidelines, have you ever seen like the little parameters that the players stand in between that have like those
yeah,
makeshift like
that's
gates?
like players and
Even
staff
we
only, and
weren't
then
allowed
yeah,
in that part of it because not like it wasn't like like oh we don't want you there. It was there's already so many people over there. Like you're crunching a bunch of people in. You have people like putting in signals, all that kind of stuff that you don't want to get in their way, and they don't want you to get like be in the way of players who need to be like. There's a bunch like a multitude of reasons that you weren't allowed over there. But that's weird to me that that guy who has nothing to do with Central Michigan is not only over there, but like in that part. Like I would almost
it makes
understand
it
if it was like,
interesting when if you put the tinfoil hat on. Jim McElwain is buddies with Harbaugh, has a connection to Michigan. Central Michigan is close enough to drive to. It is, if you're a tinfoil hat guy on Twitter, which is a lot of college football tinfoil hat guys, this is your Super Bowl. Like this story is your Super Bowl. I did
oh
take
yeah,
a step back with viewing the story. I can get mad at Michigan for all I want for cheating, all I want for this. If this keeps getting deeper and deeper, this is going to be an all-time college football story, up there with the Petrino neck brace. And this is up there with the Manziel saga, Manti Te'o and his fake girlfriend. This could be up in that echelon of just complete, like deep, wild. Like how is this even possible? This can't exist in any sport but college football. So
and
when I
part of me though too thinks that I think the media might be trying to like if stuff starts coming out before, because when does Michigan play Penn State? It's got to be within the next 4 weeks, because that
Mm-hmm.
Ohio the game is the Thanksgiving
But
weekend.
yeah,
So that's 3 weeks from now. So they have to be playing them in the next couple of weeks. Maybe it's
it's
not
not
this
this
week.
next week. No, I checked.
Okay, so then it would have to be the week after, I would assume. Maybe
Mhm.
Michigan Ohio. I don't know. Maybe Michigan Ohio State is the week after Thanksgiving. I'm not entirely
Look,
sure on that, but they have.
I'm not a Big Ten fanboy, and they are the Big Ten Twitter. I'm not in Big Ten Twitter for. I'm in Mountain West Twitter, and for some reason I'm in Big 12 Twitter. I don't know why. I saw Cyclone Larry complain that the amazing rivalry between Iowa State and Kansas State is ending, and everyone's
Okay,
telling him to like buzz off.
yeah. If your name is Cyclone Larry, that's a whole nother road we could get. They play Penn State the 11th, so that one
Okay.
is coming up. But I was gonna. What the reason I asked is, I almost wonder if they're not using all of this stuff to try to hype up those 2 games to make it seem like, oh, now Michigan's in trouble. Like they're not doing that again. Like, was it giving
I
them an
think at
advantage?
some
Like,
level, yeah. Some level, yeah. But then I think there's some level. I th- the video of him with the sunglasses that look like they are filming. If that video doesn't
yeah,
exist, I do think this gets swept away. But because he has the James Bond spy glasses on, the Google Glass, I mean, you have to take this seriously now. And Connor Stallions, what a guy! This is the last thing I'll say. Connor Stallions. I mean, if this guy, he is the biggest Michigan fan of all time. This man has dedicated his life and has essentially ended. He put his profession on the line so Michigan
yes,
could
he
make the
did.
college football playoff, and I kind of
Which
respect
is,
him for that. I respect him for that.
oh, it is it's truly hilarious. That's what it is. Like the whole thing, like the fact that it's Jim Harbaugh, and I mean, it's just, and that's the thing is like, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I believe. Like the Big Ten always tries to look down on the SEC. Is like they'll do anything to win. They'll do anything to win, and their 3 biggest programs, bar none, have had
The
2
biggest
of them.
scandals, besides Baylor, have probably had 3 of the
Yeah,
4 in the last
Penn State had the
15 years.
worst by
Yeah.
far of any of, like, Baylor's
Mhm.
close to that one, but Penn State by far, what happened at Penn State to me is far different than what took place at USC, or like teams getting on probation for the paying
Money.
players, like that type
McDonald's
of,
bags.
yeah, like that type of thing. And then you had Ohio State with, I mean, Urban Meyer would still be there if he wasn't letting a coach continue coaching when the guy's wife was coming to him and his wife saying, "Hey, this dude's beating the shit out of me. Like, can you do something
Urban
about
Meyer.
it?" So like, and that, like I said, my main point with that is like, stop looking down on the SEC like you don't do the stuff that they do. Say what you want to about Nick Saban. Say what you want to about. I mean, Auburn didn't look great with the whole Brian Harsin thing and like starting the rumor of him and the intern and that kind
I
of
feel
stuff.
like
But
I feel like that was just more. That wasn't like a scandal though. That was just fans
yeah,
being bad, and I think fans can be terrible a lot of places.
oh yeah,
My toxic trait is that if Urban went to Boise State, I'm all in. I will disregard everything I've ever said about Urban Meyer if he comes to the Blue and coaches. Speaking of Urban Meyer, let's hop into the games. Urban Meyer's former team, the Utah Utes, just got embarrassed after being on game day. But Bo Nix, legit.
oh, I think he is legit, and I called this one. I did say I thought Oregon would cover just because
You did.
and I don't know that they're going to get in, which sucks for them. I think they
They
really
need.
wish.
I think there's a path. I think they. I disagree because I think they can control their own destiny because there's no divisions in the Pac-12 anymore.
That's
So
true.
they can win out, avenge their loss to Washington, and they have a pretty good chance of getting it. It's not a guaranteed shot, but they can control their own destiny. because Michigan or Ohio State, they're out.
Yeah.
Oklahoma just pooped themselves in the foot, so they're out. Then you're only looking at, man, if Alabama, then you would have to be hoping, if you're an Oregon fan, that Alabama can't go on a run. Because Alabama, we're going to go in, instead of doing high-low Buffalo today, we're going to be going over our personal college football playoff rankings. Alabama's just chomping at the bit like a dog on a chain, and that chain's getting a lot looser and a lot weaker. And I don't think anyone would want to see Bama in December. I don't think anyone wants to see this Oregon team right now.
No. Oregon looks great. And I mean, I didn't watch. I was at an engagement party. So really this last Saturday, I watched the end of that Kansas-Oklahoma game. So I was like, I'm going
So
up to my
funny.
room.
That game was so funny. We'll go.
Because I had money,
about
and
it later.
I did it to myself again. I did it again. I had the Kansas winning money line, Colorado winning money line, and I should have pulled out.
You didn't learn your lesson? Oh no.
Well, so what was annoying about that one is I said last week, like I don't think I picked Kansas, but I did say I thought Colorado. We talked about that game, and I said I thought Colorado played. They couldn't score. I mean, that until that line gets situated, Shedeur Sanders is just going to get annihilated. Like, especially with no run game, those guys can just
Shedeur right here.
What do they say? Pin their ears back.
How you like that? How you like my Shedeur?
And then he got robbed after the game.
Yeah. Oh,
all the jewelry got stolen.
No, you're talking about Oklahoma. That was a funny game. I was watching it in Boise, and Boise. Okay, you elitist. Sorry for mispronouncing that, but it was the funniest game ever because it took like 6 hours because of the lightning delay. So by the time I remember leaving, and I'm like, this game just ended. Like I was about ready to walk to like the BSU pregame.
Yeah.
Like, this game just now ended. Wasn't this a 10 a.m. start time, Mountain Time? But Kansas, they can make a little run now. Little Kansas win out gets them in the Big 12 championship. And I feel Kansas is one of those schools. I feel so good for them. And unlike Duke, where I can't separate the football fans from the basketball fans, I think a school like Kansas, I totally can.
And well, I think part of that too is Kansas basketball for years and years had been like they were always a 1 or a 2. I don't remember the last. I mean, I think it was just a couple years ago maybe that they didn't win the Big 12 tournament. Like, hadn't they won it or like won the regular? They did something in the Big 12 regular season or conference tournament where they won it.
Had a streak of either regular season or conference championship tournament for a number of years.
But they were always like that team who was the 1 or 2 seed that was like everyone's picking the upset against them because they would generally. Ever since they won in 2008, I think it was. They didn't win again until
2021 or 2022.
Okay, 2022. So I think that's part of it. And I think they never Duke was for a while, and well, we're getting too much into a tangent on this, but Duke was for a while like the 4-year guys and didn't really get the stars. And then they changed and started becoming like kind of like Kentucky, like one and done. A lot of the players were annoying, blah, blah, blah. And Kansas has that a little bit, but I agree with you. Like, I never really think too much about like Kansas being in like Duke is just, and I think it's because Duke is always overhyped. And I like Kansas, yeah, they had like the years they would lose, but I've never thought like a team that loses. Like, to me, that's a different thing. Like when you're a 1 or 2 seed and you lose to an 8 or 9. I don't think that means you're overhyped. Like generally, I think that means the 8 or 9 you're playing is.
And we're getting a little
team.
preview to what we might be doing in March when we need to fill some content when the recruiting trail's not doing well and there's no football. We might be doing a little of that. I also think Perry Ellis brought up the average of stay time at Kansas with his 9 years there. Shout out Perry Ellis.
Grady Dick is coming back for like his 80th year or so.
Keeping my mouth shut because I know, just a heads up, everyone, we will probably do a couple college basketball shows to kill the time in the off season. Keeping my mouth shut. I have some thoughts on Dickinson. But speaking of thoughts that are negative, I am so mad at myself for not staying up. This was the first Pac-12 After Dark I hadn't watched in weeks. And of course, it's the one where Oregon State's upset. I was so mad.
I watched the end of that one in my hotel room too, because that was Saturday. Everyone was kind of. It was just a long day with a bunch of New York blooded / Italian blooded people. Like talked a lot. You were doing a bunch of stuff, just getting towards the end of the vacation. You're tired, so I went upstairs, opened a couple beers, put that game on, just watched the end of it, and it was. I didn't realize how good Arizona had been this
Arizona's
year.
pretty
Like,
good. They're
yeah,
pretty good.
and
I thought I was going to chalk them up as like, oh, Colorado, that's an easy dub for them whenever they play them soon. I don't think Colorado's going to beat Arizona now.
no, I don't either. It's
Like they're good.
I mean,
They're good.
they're very good, and their losses have not been terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Jed Fish is starting to look like, and I don't think people thought this when it happened, but he's starting to look like the guy from the Patriots that is actually a good coach. I mean, we heard what happened to Josh McDaniels yesterday. He's gone. The Bill O'Brien is still struggling. Patricia's still struggling.
So you think he can break the Belichick curse?
I think him and
maybe that was the cure to the Belichick curse all along. These guys just had to go to college. Like
it might be that. Well, I do wonder though with him but I don't know. Maybe A&M. I mean, there's still quite a bit of season to play out, and you never know if guys are going to go to the NFL like Harbaugh, and we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Ryan Day if they get killed by Michigan again. But him and Lance Leopold are setting themselves like. I'm happy with what Lance Leopold's done at Kansas, but I don't think he's in there for the long run.
I think he is. I think Lance Leopold. Maybe he's not in it for the long haul, but I think he's got one more year. I think Kansas thinks that they can make a run at the 12 team. I think they can make a run at the 12 team. But yeah, big time upsets. Also, we want to give a shout out to, you guys met him a couple weeks ago, the leader of Sooner Nation, Cody Voisin. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you. Although I got one thing to say, it was coming. There's a yin and the yang to the world, and when you mess with Butch, bad things happen. So let this be a lesson. Let this be a teachable moment to Sooner Nation. Do not make Butch Jones cry again, please. The man has been through too much. So now that that's out of the way, Sooner Nation, you can learn from this. I also love anytime Oklahoma loses, the video of the Boomer Sooner wagon falling just gets reposted everywhere, and it is death taxes and that video being posted when Oklahoma loses.
Yep, it is. It's one of those things you look forward to every year. We had a meme we were sitting on for Cody for weeks now, and we had some close calls. I was ready to fire it away, and
I say we should drop it maybe next time Oklahoma loses. We'll drop it to the Settle Down Instagram. Yeah. So follow the Instagram. We're not gonna tell you what the meme is. All I'm gonna tell you is that what comes around goes around, Sooner Nation. So with guys like Butch, I hope you're not playing Rich Rod in the next years, because if you do it the Rich Rod, something even worse is gonna happen. But speaking of can't get any worse, is Colorado starting to fall? But I say fall in the term of like, are they really falling? Like they were a 1-win team last year and they got 4 wins.
I think what's happening with them, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, I think now you're far enough into the season where teams know, all right, they can't pass block or run block, so they're not going to run the ball. And now defensive lines basically just can bull rush.
If you can rush with 3 or 4 versus them, you can bully them. Like that's the blueprint to beating Colorado.
And like their defense played pretty good the other day. They still gave up the yards and stuff, but the offense couldn't get really anything. Like that first drive, they looked okay, and then they got the turnover, and I was like, oh, that's part of the reason I didn't cash out. I was like, dang, if they go up 10-0, my cash out's going to be even a little bit higher, so I'm just going to wait. And it was like it was 7-6 at halftime, so it wasn't like they just couldn't move. Like they could just never move the ball, and it was because he would go back to pass and he didn't play bad, and Travis Hunter had 2 interceptions. He played fantastic, about as well as he could play, but they just got to get those lines. They need better line play, and
They do.
they'll get it. Like, I mean, it's,
It's
that's
tough.
one thing
Line
that's
is tough. It is. Line play has gone down, like, and you hear it from NFL coaches and college coaches, because high schools and colleges now, the offenses they're running aren't the most complex. In high schools, the level's not as complex as college. College is not as complex as the NFL. These O-line blocking schemes, they're just it's a lot of just like basic pass blocking and like zone blocking schemes. Like, guys really aren't taught how to, like, oh, I gotta hit a trap block, or oh, I gotta like switch off like on pass blocking, or oh, I gotta like hook block someone and get him with the flipper. Shout out Dreger if you're listening, king of the flipper. But it's just not as good. And to top it all off, they got their chain stolen in the locker room.
they did.
Hey,
That sucks. That
as a native Californian, don't leave your ice out. It will get snatched. It will get snatched in LA. And they do not play in Southern California. They do not play. They are in Pasadena, so it's like that's like maybe not the best comparison because it's freaking Pasadena, because it's a pretty good area in Pasadena. But yeah, they got their chain stolen, Zach.
it's been a rough.
I kind of think it's funny. I'm sorry. It's kind of funny.
Well, it's
like
always
you
one of
lose.
those things. Like, it's one of those things that, like, you do feel back if you, like, like, Shador Sanders got in the locker room. He's like, I just got hit. I dropped back like 60 times and got hit 47 of the times I dropped back in some way or some form or fashion. And now I can't do the Shador anymore because we were losing, and
Also,
my watch is stolen.
If they don't find who did this, or at least like a video, you're telling me the Rose Bowl, the most famous stadium in America, in my opinion, doesn't have a camera like in the locker room? Okay, maybe not in the locker room because people change, but like right outside the locker room in like the hallway.
Yeah,
Like what are we doing? What are we doing?
Something is afoot in the Rose Bowl Stadium. That's all I'll say.
I think what's afoot is that the fact that there actually was, I will say, last thing I'll say about this game, props to the UCLA fans. It looked like they actually filled out like the Rose Bowl. It wasn't the fill out of the true Rose Bowl because a lot of seats are tarped off, but they filled it out. And I think that should give UCLA fans some hope. Maybe UCLA was just sick of playing Stanford every year. They just wanted, they needed some big time matchups.
Speaking of weird things stadiums do, so I went to the Jets-Giants game, and apparently, and I never like really thought about it. I knew they shared a stadium. Yeah. And then I, like, on the way there, I was like, I asked my friends that are from there, I was like, so, like, this stadium's in New Jersey. Did the New Jersey taxpayers have to pay for that? And they're like, yeah, but most of them are Jets-Giants fans. So I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. But the weird thing is, so you know how when you go into any team stadium, they'll have like the little banners of players or like a shop in the stadium.
Oh,
well, each
they
week
have to change. Yeah, I've seen the video. Like, they have to like change it all, and like all of their stuff is like designed to like be reversible.
Yeah, it's all like so it was a Giants home game, but you couldn't. None of no stores were set up with Jets gear, so you couldn't buy Jets, and it was all Giants stuff. And yeah, I was like, oh, that's like kind of interesting that they like flipped like the Giants Hall of Famers around to Jets Hall of Famers.
Are they the only pro sports teams, outdoor pro sports teams, that share a stadium still?
I believe,
minus soccer. Take out soccer, because there are some NHL, NBA crossover, but I don't think there's an MLB NFL crossover, or an MLB MLB crossover, or an NFL NFL crossover.
No, because like even in the cities that have two teams, like the Mets have Citi Field, the Yankees have Yankee Stadium, Dodgers and Angels play in different places. Hockey, Islanders and Rangers, like Rangers share with the Knicks. Islanders, I don't know if they share with.
They used to share with the Nets, but they got their own one now.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that I found that interesting that they have to flip everything around and like bring down the flags.
It's so weird. It's so weird. But yeah. Anything else you want to touch on? Just some Halloween scares for teams?
Yeah, it was a weird.
Cal almost won. That was my one thing. Sorry. I was you don't realize I yelled the biggest like Darth Vader like no when I saw Justin Wilcox going for two. It was like watching a bomb. It was like watching a car accident knowing it was going to happen. I was like, dude, just go for one. You're at home. You're at home. You're at home. And then I just felt I literally put my hands above my face and just went ah! And yelled at the top of my
See,
lungs.
I was going to go with you and put money on Cal before the game started, but then I saw the protesters, and I was
Yes.
like, I won't do it now.
Yeah. They weren't even. They were protesting like the firing of some professor. You know, with all the stuff that's going on in the world, that's what you're going to protest about.
That's your concern. But I did get USC when it got to be 40. It was either when it was 43 to 29. It was at one of the times that they were down 2 scores. And I got USC at like plus 140. So I only put like $15 on them or something because I wasn't even watching the game. We ended up watching the end of it because we went to like this.
It was on Pac-12 Network. The Pac-12 Network stinks. It really does. We say it every week. It is the worst.
It's not good.
It's the worst. It's the worst. Another UW scare, Tulane scare, but yeah, that Cal one almost. That would have been a full segment if Cal would have got the dub there. And I think your prediction of Caleb Williams sitting out actually might have happened.
It was getting close. It was definitely getting close.
All right. Well, let's get into easily the main attraction for this upcoming week, upcoming games. I got no funny banner for this one because there's no funny business about this. It's LSU Bama. It's 2 top 15 teams. It's playoff hopes, New Year's Six hopes on the line pretty much. It's what some people think is the best player in the country, playing the best coach in the country. This is about as classic SEC as you get. I'm excited.
We will get to see the video this week of the Alabama fan who talks about an LSU fan. He says, an LSU fan tried to stick his finger in my booty hole. Have you seen that one?
I love that one. And then I love the Alabama fan going, I own no burnt orange. I hate the color orange. Tennessee, yuck. Something like that.
He's great too. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I've always liked this game. It's like, it's really.
I feel like this is like a Big Ten West game sometimes on steroids because Big Ten West games will be like, 20 to 15, but then like an LSU Bama 20 to 15 game, it's like, oh my goodness, like how is this so exciting for a 20 to 15 game?
Yeah, I mean, we had it wasn't the last year of the BCS. I believe it was the next to last. I'll never forget the 9-6 regular season game that turned LSU. LSU played 8 quarters of football against Alabama and couldn't muster one touchdown. Alabama could muster one.
I remember watching the Eric Reed interception, and that's when I just threw my hands up. Even as an 11-year-old, I was like, "What is going on? Like, what is going on?"
It was bad. But it's crazy. That was like a decade ago, and how much
it is
really. But I mean, Alabama this year is playing a little bit that old school, like keep the ball away from you. But I mean, can you imagine like a crystal ball for an LSU fan and them getting to see like having Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels?
The Joe Burrow LSU team versus the prime McCarron Alabama team. That I think that just would have been like the thought of that just sounds like it'd just be insane.
Yeah.
Like Grant Delpit like trying to tackle like TJ Yeldon, like that would be awesome. And like that was Eddie Lacy, is right. It was Eddie Lacy at the beginning of the McCarron years, and then it was Trent Richardson, right? Towards the end of the McCarron years.
Trent Richardson was the beginning, and then it went to Eddie Lacy because Trent Richardson backed up Mark Ingram when they beat Texas.
Their running back like lineage is at Bama
it's insane.
Like it's like Ingram, then Richardson, then Lacy, then Yeldon, then Scarborough, then Henry, then Scarborough / Damian like Harris, and Najee Harris,
Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs, and I'm who's the other guy? Kenyon Drake was in there. It's nuts. But who do you got in this game?
I'm going LSU. I think it'll be really close. and I don't think it will mean one team is far superior than the other. But I do think, and I'm basically just basing it off of we're in that part of the year where teams start eliminating each other. LSU is virtually out of it. They're, even if
You think it's a little spoiler game?
Little
LSU
spoiler
does.
game. I mean, they could. I guess theoretically they could if they win this one. Ole Miss loses. Basically, they would need to win. LSU has one.
Do you
so
think?
I don't know how
Do you
it
think
would.
part of this is just you wishing because you're just hoping on to whatever shred of hope you have for Ole Miss to make the SEC championship?
Ole Miss is making the SEC championship, but yes, part of me wants LSU to win. But I still don't know how it would work if. So if LSU wins this weekend, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss all have one SEC loss, correct?
And they would have all beat each other.
They would have all beat each other. So I would think at that point that if LSU beats Alabama, Alabama's only one spot ahead of Ole Miss right now, correct, in the first playoff rankings?
Yes.
So I don't think LSU would jump Ole Miss, at least not at first, because assuming Ole Miss beats A&M, if they beat A&M, they would want that Ole Miss Georgia game to be a higher versus higher ranked matchup. But I would think at that point, if Ole Miss somehow does beat Georgia, their last SEC game is Mississippi State. They would, if they went out, they would be the SEC West co-champion, but they would represent the West, right? Because they would be the highest.
Come to the SIP. I've been saying it. Come to the SIP. Hashtag come to the SIP. Our boy Lane.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, they still have to. I mean, they're Ole Miss. I'm not getting my hopes up too high.
I think I want LSU to win because I think, like you said, I want that chaos. I just keep getting pulled into Bama. It's like the old Brady Patriots and like the Curry Warriors. It's like I'm gonna keep picking them until they prove they can like continually disappoint me. So I picked them against Tennessee even after their struggles, and they beat Tennessee and made me look like a smart man. So we'll see. The one thing we do know is that this is going to be a great game.
I do think Alabama is going to have to score more than they have been in this game, and I think that LSU Jaden Daniels is going to be probably he's better than not Mackenzie Milton. He's better than Joe Milton. Probably better than.
Did you say Mackenzie Milton?
Yeah, Mackenzie. I meant Joe Milton. Two very, very different looking human beings is what they are. But I do think
two very, very different talent levels, I will say, too. I think I'd rather have... No, okay. Mackenzie, okay, I take that back. Mackenzie Milton for like that 1 year was pretty good. That's okay. Sorry for going off on a tangent.
He destroyed his knee, but...
Yeah, that was sad.
I mean, I would say...
laughing at him breaking his knee.
I would say Jaden Daniels is probably at this point a little bit better than my boy at Ole Miss, but they did a pretty good job shutting down Jackson Dart. They did a pretty good job shutting down Mackenzie Milton. What's his face from Texas? I can't think of his name right now. Quinn Ewers. He did a little good against them, so we'll see. I'm leaning LSU, but to me, it's kind of like a pick 'em. I really have no feel on that game whatsoever. I could see Alabama just shutting down that offense somehow, and they win that game. I mean, I'm sorry. People can do their whole Alabama's not going to get in. If Alabama wins out and beats an undefeated Georgia in the SEC championship,
they're in.
And
honestly, Georgia might be out. Honestly, Georgia might be out because of their thing. Alabama 100% controls their own destiny because then their only loss would be to a ranked Texas team, and people would 100% forget the scare versus USF.
Yeah, and by far the funniest scenario that could just cause complete and total chaos, which I was looking at I got some free Wi-Fi, so I was looking at it on the plane, and it made me chuckle to think that this could happen. And that last week of the season, you have Auburn at Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going to be a one. Ole Miss on Thursday night will be playing on Thanksgiving night, plays in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State, who doesn't look great. Auburn hasn't won an SEC, or Auburn did win an SEC game. Sorry, they beat Mississippi State. So Auburn does have a win. But you also have, which would just be, I almost want this to happen. Obviously, I want Ole Miss to do well. But if that weekend Auburn beats Alabama, Mississippi State beats Ole Miss, and A&M beats LSU, who in the hell is the SEC West champion? Who goes? Because all have lost.
Is it Mizzou? Would it be Mizzou?
No, Mizzou in the East. Mizzou's playing to go to the SEC. Like if they lose this weekend,
who would be in?
I don't know, because they would all have 2 losses, like, all to each other.
It would be some crazy tiebreaker that would piss a lot of people off. That's what I would know.
Yeah,
that was LSU Bama. There's so much to talk about. We talked about it for a while, and there is still so much we can. Another great rivalry. We got Bedlam.
We do for the last time.
I think Mike Gundy might chomp off like an OU fan's nose if they get too close to him. I think Mike Gundy's fired up for this game.
Well, hey, I mean, people thought Oklahoma State was going to be bad this year, especially after they lost
to South Alabama.
They got killed by him too, correct? Like it was like 28-3 or something like that. But I mean, he's got them right now. They're 6-2, 4-1. They're in. Also, I mean, they went. Iowa State. I also had no idea it was 4-1.
Yeah, no, they're good. 12, but also, why is this Bedlam during the day?
I feel like I don't know. It's much cooler as a night. It's so much cooler as a night game. And I'm telling you, if Oklahoma State wins this one, they have UCF and Houston, who have not won a game, and I don't believe in the Big 12. I know UCF hasn't. I'm not sure about
No. Houston won the Neil Brown game. The Dana Holgerson.
They did win that one. But I guess Iowa State will win the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State because they beat him. But Oklahoma State's 3 games after this.
Matt UCF, yell in the fans' face, Houston, Campbell would get in.
Yeah, UCF's last 3 games after this are the 3 new Big 12 teams: UCF, Houston, BYU.
Oklahoma's got a path. Oklahoma State's got a path.
Oklahoma State's they can win this one. If they win this one, they are probably going. Because
I think winning this is easier said than done. Because I do think Oklahoma is the more talented team.
Yeah,
is the better team. Like that is the thing. Like I think Cowboy fans are like hyping themselves up, like just like you said, they're looking ahead on the schedule, going like, "Oh my gosh, we can beat all those 3 teams." It's like, well, can you beat Oklahoma? That's the question.
Right. That rivalry is like 87-14 all time, or something ridiculous that.
It is like the classic. It was so. I was so sad for Oklahoma State fans when Oklahoma announced they were moving to the SEC. And Oklahoma State fans were like, "What about Bedlam?" And then all the OU fans were essentially like, "Well, at least we still have the Cotton Bowl. Like, we don't care." And it was like, "Oh my goodness, they totally big broed you."
Also, didn't this game, and maybe I'm just misremembering from when I was a kid, this game used to be like that Black Friday weekend, right? Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes.
I could have swore it was one of the rivalry week game. Maybe they changed it way more back than I thought, but like for a while I swore it was like last or next to the last week of the season, and maybe it switched around with now them having the Big 12 title game. But I mean, the Big 12's always like the Big 12 produces the most random ass teams who like win the league.
The Big 12's the best, and it's just going to get even better when you add like the bros of the Arizona schools, the freaks of Utah. And who's the last one that they're
UCF,
Utah,
Cincinnati.
No, the other what was it on that other pot of 4? It was the freaks of Colorado, Coach Prime. Oh, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. But let's get into the last game that I think USC UW's gonna be wacky. Okay, somehow I think either UW is gonna play terrible or Caleb Williams is gonna have like reintroducing himself into the Heisman type performance.
So this is my hot take of the week. I think USC is winning this game.
I don't usually with your like the last couple times you've done this, I've been I don't blame you. I get the reasoning.
I just think that UW is not, and it's not that I think UW is bad. I think UW is really good, but I think they've been, kind of just passing by these last few weeks. Like they got extremely lucky in that Arizona State game on some no calls. Very lucky. Stanford, it looked like they took a little bit for granted. That was a closer game than they thought. And I think that, I still think to a certain degree, people are taking, the defense still sucks. But I think people are taking USC a little for granted too. Like, it's still Caleb Williams, and
That offense could still score 45 points.
Offense can still score 45 points, and I think that we're seeing the last days of Alex. Something's got to change with that defense. We're not going to get into that tangent that we've talked about before.
But almost every week at this point.
Yeah, I'm going USC. I think that UW is a lot more beatable than maybe some of their fans think they are. And there's a segment, I know some that definitely know that they're beatable and they don't want to get too far ahead of themselves because they have a tough schedule coming up. I do. Speaking of Washington schools, it has been a rough month now for your boy Cam Ward for Heisman.
Nope. I don't even know who that is. I don't know who that is. So I don't know who that is. I definitely didn't say he was going to be in New York at the Heisman ceremony in September. I didn't say that. That wasn't me. That was a clone. That wasn't me.
It could. I mean, hey, it's not Cam on record Ward. Right now.
No, he's forever. Cam Ward, you made me so sad. What will make me even more sad is if UW loses, because I do think if UW loses, not because I'll feel sad because I'm a UW fan. I do think if UW loses, the Pac-12 will Pac-12 itself this month. For some reason I think if UW loses, Oregon somehow in their sick twisted brains will let off the gas, and then they'll lose, and then everyone will start losing. I think UW needs to win out for everyone else, for Oregon to win out. And I'll just be interested to see how it plays out. I think UW is going to win this game, but I think it's going to look bad again. I think with UW, it's looking like they might lose in the Pac-12 championship, but they're just so good. They're so talented, but I do think they do play the classic looking ahead game, taking teams for granted, kind of trying to coast through because they can see the ultimate goal, and they're like, "Oh, I want that. I don't want to play this game this week." So It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Any other games you want to bring up? Any other games we're forgetting? I have a meat matchup that's going to be incredible, but it's
I think the Ole Miss A&M game will be interesting because I think that Jimbo loses this one.
Done. He's done.
He's done. Just let me scroll through to make sure I didn't miss anything on the schedule. Kansas State at Texas, that one will be a little bit interesting.
Pretty good game.
For some reason, UConn is playing Tennessee this weekend. Did not know that.
Hey, Jim Mora. I love myself some Jim Mora, man.
Go ahead.
I said I love Jim Mora. I think if Jim Mora was playing when UCLA had Jordan Brand or Nike, I think he would have won. For some reason in my twist-up brain, I always thought it was the Adidas uniforms that UCLA had that kept them from being a good team, in 2012 and 13.
Honestly, it's very possible. Who do you have in that Missouri-Georgia game?
Georgia.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm so sorry, Mizzou fans, because you guys are 12, and I don't want to talk about Mizzou. I don't want to talk, and it's partially because I think your coach is a tool. So I think Eli Drinkowitz is a complete tool. But hey, you guys are winning, and I cannot fault you guys, and I will give respect where respect's due. It's incredible for Mizzou, and if Mizzou wins this one, would they be in the race for the SEC championship?
If they win this one, they have. I was just looking at it. I will go back quickly. They have their one loss to LSU. So they basically, if Georgia wins this, they clinch the SEC East because they
can have a loss and still get in pretty much.
They can have a loss and still get in. At that point, they would have beaten Florida. They would have beaten Missouri, who will have their second loss. Mm-hmm. After this game, Mizzou has Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas, and then maybe Tennessee theoretically could. Tennessee would need. When do they play Georgia? They play Georgia on the 18th. So Tennessee basically needs Georgia to lose this week and then to beat them themselves. So basically, for all intents and purposes, this is SEC East eliminator. week for
Georgia and Eli
everybody.
Eli Drinkowitz, the complete tool. Yeah. Also, it's BSU Fresno State week this week, and we're just gonna give you guys and who's watching on the YouTube or is listening now, please, everyone, please go look up the Fresno State fan fight from 2 years ago, or was it 2 years? Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Yes, 2 years
It was
ago.
the 2021 game. I'm not gonna play you guys the video because I want you guys to watch it in all its glory. All I'm gonna do is share with you a screen grab of that. Yeah, this is let me pull it up. Where is he? Yeah, right there. Oh my goodness, that's so glorious. You seeing
It
this,
was
man? This is yeah, please go and watch this. Like it we can't pull up the video, but like there's a guy's like son who gets involved and like he there's that. There's the
it was just so funny when we saw that. It was there's a group of Optimist football players that run away. It's very, very funny.
There was youth football players. This fight had everything. Yeah, it was just incredible. But yeah, let's get into the meme matchup of the week. This week's meme matchup. I think we might have the same meme matchup. I'm going. This was a not think too hard kind of week for me too. I'm gonna play the classics this week. Is yours also Iowa versus Northwestern?
Yeah, it has to be.
We should just rename this the Big Ten West segment of the week. This is the meme matchup for one reason and one reason only. At one point during the week, I don't think it's it now, but it was the smallest over-under in like modern like gambling history. It was 29.5 in a Division I football game. I think it might be up to 30.5 or 31.5 or 32.5 now. But there was Division I football teams in the Big Ten, and Vegas said these teams aren't going to get 2 touchdowns each.
Speaking of hilarious Big Ten things, and I wanted to get a video of it, but they must play like 50 before it comes. So when we landed in Newark on my trip last week,
the Rutgers.
Not only Rutgers, but it is Greg Schiano holding a football out like this, and he goes, he's like, what is it? He's like, New York and New Jersey's only Big Ten school.
Yeah, not like there's 50 billion Michigan alumni living in New York City, Greg. Right. Hey, say what you will about Schiano, man. He's doing Rutgers. I think Cal should follow the Rutgers model. You know what? Just win 8 games a year and have a good time.
Yeah.
Like Rutgers knows what they are. You know, every couple of years you got to get an upset. You know, beat the big team every once in a while. But yeah, Iowa, Nebraska. This is the easy matchup, guys. This is I don't know, especially Iowa coming off the muffed punt a few weeks ago.
Our boy, they massacred our boy.
Another thing about this meme matchup, can we have a moment of silence for Brian Ferentz, who was told even if he hits the limit, he will not be coming back this year or next year as the offensive coordinator. And I'm just so sad because now Iowa's going to look like, I guarantee you Iowa's going to look like early Harbaugh, Michigan, where like they actually like run like a power eye and score.
Yeah,
I'm going to be so sad when Iowa doesn't win games. It's gonna make it not Iowa. Iowa needs Brian Ferentz.
They do. He's the straw that stirs the drink.
You know what? He's not the drink, but sometimes you need a straw. And yes, the straw is not edible, and yes, the straw is quite disgusting. But who cares? You need Brian Ferentz. You know where we don't need Brian Ferentz is the college football playoff, though, because that would be an absolute travesty if Iowa was playing. But instead of high-low Buffalo this week.
Pause before you start. I'm watching the Fresno State, the fight. Can I get some backstory on this? Are these 2 Fresno State fans, or is this a Boise State fan and a Fresno State?
No. It was Fresno State fans fighting, and one of them it's only Fresno State. And it's like a group fight that becomes like a 2-on-2 fight, that becomes a 1-on-1 fight, that becomes one guy tumbling down into a group of people and like a youth football team, and then the cops get there and tackle the one guy, and then like the other guy's like parent or friend like pushes a cop, and then like he gets arrested for no reason. It is quite the ride, and all this is happening while total friendly fire. All this is happening.
The background noise is hilarious. They're like Jordan Thomas to attempt the kick here.
All this is going on while the game's going on. Like they don't stop the game, even as the guy in the Redskins jersey tumbles down. Like if you watch the video, he tumbles down Zooch maybe like 9 rows.
Yeah.
Like he tumbles down 9 rows on the field.
Yeah,
it is incredible. If there was a college football playoff ranking for fights, that would be on it easily. But Zooch, how do you want to do this? You want to go 1-1, or do you just want to rip all your 6 and I'll rip all my 6?
We can do 1-1 to see how if we match up.
Okay. Let me get my last team in there. All right. So my number 1 team in the country is the meme himself, Ryan Day, and the Ohio State Buckeyes. I have them at number 1. I know they've played close games, but I think their big victories overshadow the close games they've had. And I think what some people in college football don't like to do is they go, well, that's not the best team. Like this team's way. It was like the TCU like the TCU last year. It's like Alabama would have killed TCU. It's like, well, Alabama didn't deserve to be ahead of TCU.
Right.
Like Ohio State deserves the number 1 ranking, in my opinion.
So I agree with what you just said there about they don't look like the best team, but my number 1 is still Georgia. I can't until Georgia gets beaten. I mean, it's hard for me to. I get they have new players, new quarterback, blah blah blah, but 2-time defending champion, 8-0 this year, haven't given me any. I mean, they were the consensus number 1 coming in. They haven't given me any reason to think like they should drop down.
It's just a couple scares they've had, but yeah, they're my number 2 though. Like I don't think that like I'm not some crazy fanatic. They're still undefeated. I still think if Georgia wins out, I think they have a chance of being number 1, because if Ohio State loses, I think Georgia is the team that goes to number 1. So I have Georgia at 2.
Speaking of Georgia, they are giving, what do you call him, Kim Jong Kirby?
Oh yeah,
Kim Jong Kirby ammunition right now.
Oh no, I honestly, he's gonna pull this podcast clip. Who probably we probably have one fan who's a Georgia listener. Somehow he's gonna find that clip, be like, look at this idiot in the Giants hat saying you guys are number 2 in the country. Yeah. Kim Jong Kirby running propaganda out of Athens. He doesn't allow ESPN in. You can only watch certain Feinbaum clip shows, Big Vol Daddy, and Tuscaloosa local radio. Those are the only forms of media that players in Athens can listen to.
I had a friend who's a Florida fan who went to the game, and I'm sitting there. We're getting stuff ready for this party, and he texts me. He's like, 7-0, went right down the field on him. And then I didn't hear from him, and I wasn't checking that score on my game. And then maybe 45 minutes later, he's like, it took a turn for the worse. And I it was like, whatever it was, like 33 unanswered points that Georgia scored on Florida to knock
Georgia's
belly down a couple pegs. But my number 2 is Ohio State, and it was close with them in Georgia, but I mean, realistic, and I'll go ahead and say my 3. Michigan's my 3, and all 3 of them I could see at any of those spots, honestly. Like, I know Michigan's going through all their crap right now with Spygate or whatever you want to call it, but they're still really good. Like,
they are good. And I gonna have, this is where I think we're gonna really differ. I have FSU at 3. I have FSU at 3 because I think, like Ohio State, they have a resume of, you can say all you want with the ACC, they have ranked wins and big wins on them. They got the LSU win, they have the Clemson win, they have the Duke win. These are all big-time wins. They keep winning, and minus the Boston College game, they haven't looked weak. I know the Clemson game wasn't going the best, but I think Clemson, they were ranked at the time, and say what you will about Clemson. Also, but before we get into this, you get 30 seconds about Tyler from Spartansburg. Sorry, everyone, we're going to cut this segment. Pause on college football playoff ranking segment. Dabo Sweeney, all-time coach rant.
It was. I was dead at the whole, well, you think you can coach better?
Yeah. I started as the lowest paid coach in this profession. And he goes, Tyler.
Well, he just needs, I mean, like, he obviously, like, lets that get to him a little bit too much. Like, you know, like, Saban doesn't really let it get to him. Like,
No,
so, yeah, every once in a while, he's like, yeah, I think fans are a little bit ridiculous. Like, he'll, like, say his piece about it, but he's never had, like, a blow up like Dabo Sweeney just did over a caller. And I'm sorry, but Alabama callers are way worse than
he did have
Clemson.
Nick Saban did have the incredible, I'm not going to, so quit asking.
I forgot about that.
He did have.
Just snapped on that girl reporter.
Yeah.
He did.
He up like 3 touchdowns too? Oh,
yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, but I have FSU at my number 3 team. I think the resume is, besides Ohio State's, I think it's the second best resume in the country so far.
Okay, I have FSU at 4.
Okay. So your number 3 team?
My number 3 was Michigan.
Oh, this is where I'm taking a chance right here, Zooch. Washington is my number 4 team in the country.
I can't argue against it, really.
They have a big win. They are undefeated. They are in the Pac-12, which I think is better than the Big Ten. Michigan is my 5. Sorry, Michigan fans. I think you're getting a little too much credit for what you did last year. You have looked good. However, I think Michigan winning out and Washington winning out, Michigan will jump Washington. That is a deal. So Michigan fans, don't get mad. This is for now. It's the first playoff ranking. You're number 5 for now because you haven't played anyone big time yet. You have 2 big time games on your schedule. If you beat Penn State and you beat Ohio State and you win the Big Ten, you will probably be a 1, 2, or 3 seed. So chillax, Michigan fans. Then my number 6 seed, I think, is a little controversial as well. I have Alabama ahead of Texas. Even though Texas won the head-to-head, I think this is where my internal BCS computer comes out. And whatever weird things, when I watch the teams play, I go, Alabama looks like a better team. And I know I talked about the whole better team thing. I don't care. Alabama looks like the better team. I'm also kind of projecting that they will beat LSU this week, which I think will solidify them being 6.
Okay. So my 5 is Washington, but I
have them over Oregon too, which that was another one I was going back and forth on. It was between Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. I have Alabama.
Okay. I can't really argue against any of that. The Alabama one, I can understand how people would think Texas should be ahead of them, but I do get your reasoning behind that. My number 5 right now is Washington. My number 6 is Texas.
Okay.
I'll
eat you respect.
Really, like 5 through 8 of that Washington, Oregon, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma. Although, I know Oklahoma just lost.
I think Oklahoma was going to be my 6 if they didn't lose this last weekend. Like they were locked to be my 6.
Which that part of the 12-team playoff, I am happy because it's hard for me to say any of those. And I think this might be the year that, like, we're getting pretty deep into the season where you might have an undefeated team.
That hasn't happened ever yet, right?
Theoretically, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, one of those 2. FSU, Washington still undefeated. We're forgetting someone who's undefeated, right? Or is everyone else lost? No, okay, so you have Ohio State. There's right now there's 5 undefeateds, but only 4 of them can go undefeated.
Would you let in a 1-loss Ohio State or a 1-loss Michigan over like an undefeated UW team that kind of wins close every single game out?
That would be a tough sell, but I wouldn't put. It's about rate.
The Pac-12 is tough this year. But the Pac-12 has been tough this year, and it's the last year of the Pac-12. Like the Pac-12, easily is the third best conference in the nation this year overall. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited. Don't watch out for Air Force too. Not in the national championship race, but if we can see the triple option in a New Year's Six Bowl, that will be incredible. Imagine Air Force playing a school like what's this kind of school they would play?
God forbid Nebraska wins the Big Ten championship and gets to go to the Rose Bowl, and we get an Air Force, or not even whatever bowl it'll be this year for the Big Ten champion, Air Force versus Nebraska. The amount of times it will show Tom Osborne will be unheard of.
Oh my goodness, that would be like. I feel like that's like the McDonald's story, like the guy who invented McDonald's, and then like the guy just like takes the idea from him and just like beats him over the head and steals all his money. That'll be Air Force beating Nebraska. But yeah, no, I'm excited for the rankings. I don't think much is gonna. The only thing I could see changing this week is for my personal rankings is obviously if any of these teams lose. But if Alabama can beat LSU. No, because then I couldn't jump them over another undefeated team. So unless one of these teams loses, I don't see one of these teams jumping one, even if all of them win. Yeah, exciting stuff, but I'm excited for this next week. Good games. Fresno State, I'm going to be posting the fight video. The world needs to be reminded of that. Yeah, anything else from you?
Not really. We're just in the dog days now, to where every week you basically have good matchups, barring that like 2 weeks from now, where a lot of the before the rivalry week, where a lot of teams play specifically SEC. I should mention that, but
we're gonna get the Citadel game soon.
Citadel, Samford, they're coming, as Deion Sanders would say.
Kennesaw State.
Yeah, Kennesaw State, coming. Central Arkansas. Like,
Jacksonville State.
All the teams that like people had to go to for a variety of reasons, because college is expensive, that people go to that are fans of
coming.
Yep, exactly.
Pretty much the Sun Belt. The entire Sun Belt is coming.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of Sun Belt, isn't that what James Madison is in? The undefeated.
Absolute travesty that they're not. An absolute travesty that they're not going to. Although this year, I do think Air Force would have gotten in over them if both schools went undefeated. But I still think it's travesty. If they go undefeated, they should 100% be playing in like the Alamo Bowl or like the Gator Bowl. No, not the Gator Bowl, but like what's a good like East Coast bowl game? The Outback Bowl. The Outback Bowl would be like perfect for an undefeated JMU. But yeah, that's it for me. Sorry, JMU. I'm on your side.
Yep, I'm done too. Looking forward to this week, and we'll see you guys all next week.
See y'all next week. Peace out.